right now on News Channel 8 at 11.
Florida's two key races neck and neck tonight. Andrew Gillum, as you just saw there, conceding to Ron DeSantis. Bill Nelson, Rick Scott still too close to call. A nail-biter of an election night 2018 here in the Sunshine State. Good evening. I'm Keith Cate.
I'm Jennifer Lee. Thank you for joining us this evening. We would like to go back and listen to more of what Democrat Andrew Gillum is saying in his concession speech to Ron DeSantis.
Get your lesson and one day bring that education home. She would say, bring it home for your little brother and your little sister who don't know what it is yet. Bring it home. Bring it home for that little boy down the street that you play with. God knows where he's going to end up. Bring it home. She said, bring it home for your mama and for your daddy who get out there every single day, going to work on somebody else's job in order to keep a roof over your head and clothes on your back and food on the table. Bring it home. As I shared with you on the campaign trail, I didn't always know what my grandmother was trying to communicate, but I would come to learn that what she was saying is that it wasn't just about me. Y'all, I'm reminded this evening that it is not about me. That it's not about my wife, not Chris King, not Kristen. This is about all of us. This is about the collective. This is about the belief that if we all do good, we can all do good. And we can do good by doing good. That if we all put our oars in the water and row in the same direction, that we can all get further than by ourselves. I still believe that to be true this evening. Even in defeat, I believe that to be true. The question is, we have a choice to make tomorrow morning. Are we gonna wake up and bask in sorrow and defeat? Or are we going to get up and reassert ourselves to the mission at hand? Are we going to get up and fight for the things that we believe in? Are we going to get up and say that we still deserve our seat at the table? Look, I said before that I believe that we have to have a table in this state that is long enough, that is wide enough, that is deep enough to fit all of us. I still believe that we got to have that table. But y'all, we're just gonna have to do a little bit more work in order to build that table. We're gonna have to do a little bit more.
Andrew Gillum in his concession speech tonight, a remarkable campaign he ran, but election day did him in. Ron DeSantis is going to be the next governor of the state of Florida right now, but of course, it has been down to the wire all night. We've been watching as these results come in, not only for the governor's race, but for the Senate race as well. And
talk about a race that is simply too close to call. There are a number of local races we're following for you, too. Those results are on the bottom of your screen, but tonight we have live crews all over the state covering those big races like the governor's race, like the Senate race, all those races you need to know about.
So let's begin with the governor's race right now. We'll have News Channel 8's Melanie Michael is joining us live from Orlando, where DeSantis' campaign is now celebrated. I'm sure they've heard the news by now, Mel.
They certainly have, guys. Good evening to you both. What a night this has been. With that concession speech, a lot of cheers in this room from DeSantis supporters, and I can tell you, this has been one of the biggest political pendulums, if you will, of the night. Gillum obviously going into this with a lead yesterday and today, and you could feel the tension in the room really early on in the night as supporters gathered to cheer on their candidate, Ron DeSantis, here at the Rosen Center live in Orlando. Then, as the night went on, one of the toughest races being watched all over America became one of the tightest margins, and that number got closer and closer, and now the supporters know that Ron DeSantis will be their next governor. We are told that the DeSantis family is in fact here in the Rosen Center tonight. They're watching the returns just like we have, no doubt. They are very excited to come downstairs in just a few moments, but again, a lot of folks here in Orlando at the Rosen Center tonight. Those supporters for this former congressman who is now our next governor here in the state of Florida, very excited to hear from the candidate. We'll be standing by live to bring that to you live right here on air and online. But for now, we'll send it back to you guys, and we'll let you know when he arrives here downstairs in the ballroom.
We will be standing by waiting for word from you, Mel, so we can come back and hear Ron DeSantis and his acceptance speech. So thank you, Melanie Michael, live for us in Orlando tonight.
Shifting now to the other major race of this evening, that hotly contested U.S. Senate race. And talk about a nail-biter. This race may be going on for a few days.
Longtime Democratic Senator Bill Nelson fighting to keep his seat against current Florida Governor Rick Scott. Look at those results, Keith Cate, 50 to 50%. And this could come down to the actual percentage of voters. If it's a 0.5% margin here, that would trigger an automatic recount.
And if you get even closer than that, you get to a hand count. We'll see where this goes, but right now we have crews live with both the Scott and the Nelson campaigns tonight. We're going to begin with News Channel 8's Chip Osowski. He is live with Nelson supporters in Orlando. Chip.
Keith, an interesting development that just happened moments ago. A Nelson staffer came out and took to the podium and said that there were actually some voting machine issues in Broward County, and in Palm Beach County somehow there were 100,000 votes for Rick Scott that may or may not be contested. So that is still out there. That being said, the mood definitely shifted here just a few hours ago. A lot of people were kind of throwing in the towel. We can show you back live. You can see there are still folks out here that are watching. Many of the Democrats called this a grassroots campaign. They poured their hearts and souls into this campaign for Nelson and the other Democrats in the area. They were certainly hoping and planning on a big celebration this evening. Instead, a number of folks left here a little bit earlier, licking their wounds.
It breaks my heart. Bill Nelson, I work for labor, and I work for National Association of Letter Carriers, and Bill Nelson's always been a friend and has always helped protect the Postal Service and our jobs. So with that, it's, of course, I'm a little disappointed right now.
This is bringing it back to when Trump won that night. Very sad and very disappointing.
So that Nelson staffer came out and said that they had been in touch with the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections as well as CNN. So this thing's still up in the air. And as a number of folks out here said to me earlier, it's not over until it's over. Reporting live in Orlando, I'm Chip Osowski, News Channel 8.
Yeah, Rick Scott obviously is watching that as well, but Bill Nelson needs those counties. Broward County, Miami-Dade County, Palm Beach County, those are the counties with enough outstanding votes to maybe push him over the top. But according to NBC and the sources we're hearing, it's just not enough. So this really does come to the margin of error issue. Will we get to that? We shall see. But we know they're probably celebrating in Naples tonight, where supporters of Governor Rick Scott are hoping this lead that he has remains, and he is declared the winner.
That very narrow lead. They're holding on to every vote here. News Channel 8's Peter Bernard is at the La Playa Beach and Golf Resort, where I imagine the mood is pretty upbeat.
Jen and Keith, you're right there. Moments ago, the crowd erupted into "We want Rick, we want Rick." That's what they want tonight. They want him to come down and speak to this crowd. It has not happened yet. And as you know, the numbers for Rick Scott have been good into the early evening. They appear to be that way now, but it's just a narrow victory so far, but they haven't declared victory. Let's go to some video from earlier tonight. As election results appeared on the large screen TVs, the crowd erupted with screams and whistles. This is Rick Scott country. He has a home here in Collier County where he lives when he's not in Tallahassee. Supporters are still hanging in there, confident Governor Scott will be going to Washington, D.C. While many hoped this night would be over and everyone would be on their way home by now, they're sticking with it to see how this ends.
I knew this was going to be neck and neck, but at the end of the day, the Panhandle's going to carry us through, just like the 2016 election.
Confidence level is high.
100%.
It's going to be a win tonight.
Your confidence level?
I am so confident. I've been confident from the very beginning. I wasn't even worried. I'm not even worried.
All right, so we're still waiting for Rick Scott to come down here and address the crowd here. Of course, those numbers have not been finalized. I know people don't want to go out on a limb and say this is over until it's over, especially with that slim margin and maybe not every single vote counted right now. So we're in it for the long haul right now, and we will cut in as soon as Rick Scott comes down and talks to the supporters here. I haven't seen anyone go home. They're sticking with it tonight, and they're going to stay and have a final result. Keith and Jen?
Two-term Governor Rick Scott taking down a three-term Senator and Bill Nelson, if that happens. But again, too soon to make that call. Peter Bernard reporting live for us tonight. Thank you, Peter. Tonight, voters, of course, also deciding who will be Florida's next Attorney General.
News Channel 8's JB Buno joins us live from the WFLA Now desk. JB.
Yeah, Jen, Keith, the race for Attorney General was a tight one between two candidates who grew up right here in the Bay Area. Republican Ashley Moody from Plant City, of course, and her Democratic opponent, Sean Shaw, from Tampa. Here are the results for Florida's Attorney General race, and you see that Shaw put up quite the fight, but it was Ashley Moody winning this one with 52% of the vote. Voters choosing Moody to be Florida's next Attorney General. And if we look here at the video from earlier on tonight, here you see Pam Bondi being the first to welcome her onto stage, that being Moody, of course, the former federal prosecutor, winning one of Florida's key races, one that was called earlier than some of the other key races we were following tonight. Moody pointing out that her opponent, Sean Shaw, never prosecuted a case, and that his first should not be as Attorney General. Moody, of course, is a fifth-generation Floridian.
I will remember every day that the voters have trusted me with a great power, and I will remember along with that comes great responsibility. I will always remember that it is not about me, it is about you.
As Attorney General, Ashley Moody says that she'll be protecting the rights of every Floridian. That is a key part of what she's been telling voters all campaign long. Ashley Moody will be taking over Republican Pam Bondi's Attorney General position. Bondi, of course, being barred from seeking re-election because of term limits. Jen, Keith, will send it back to you.
All right, J.B. Buno live in our WFLA Now desk. Thank you for that. And the results now for who will be Florida's next Agriculture Commissioner: Republican Matt Caldwell and Democrat Nikki Fried. You can see Caldwell with 50% of the vote and Nikki Fried also with 50%.
Florida's Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Patronis running for re-election against Democrat Jeremy Ring. A little wider margin here. Jimmy Patronis with 52% of the vote to Jeremy Ring's 48%.
Some of the most important decisions that Florida voters made at the polls today were for amendments to the state constitution.
We'll take a look now at the results for some of the most controversial amendments. First, Amendment 4, which would restore voting rights to Floridians with felony convictions after they complete their sentence. The amendment would not apply to those convicted of murder or sexual offenses, but you see that amendment passing by a wide margin, 64% there.
And then we go to Amendment 3. This is would give voters the exclusive right to decide whether or not that any new casino gambling should be authorized in Florida. 71%, an overwhelming support for this amendment number 3, 71% to 29% who were against.
Amendment 6 creates constitutional rights for victims of crime. It also raises the mandatory retirement age for judges from 70 to 75. This is another amendment that passes, 62% to 38% no votes.
Amendment 9, sort of those bundling amendments that we hear much about, prohibits offshore oil drilling and gas drilling beneath all state-owned waters, but it also bans vaping inside workplaces. And whatever the decision was, people decided, well, I'll just vote for it anyway. 69% said yes, 31% said no.
Amendment 13, which would end greyhound racing in the state of Florida by the end of 2020, passed overwhelmingly in Florida. 69% of voters approving this amendment. And tonight's decision on Amendment 13, clearly a devastating one for the Derby Lane dog track in St. Petersburg. Derby Lane claims to be the oldest continuously operating greyhound track in the world. They will have to stop greyhound racing by December 31st of 2020.
You know, a few moments ago we heard Andrew Gillum giving his concession. We're hearing now that Republican Ron DeSantis is about to give his acceptance speech. A lot of people are in that room waiting to hear what he has to say. So let's listen in and see what's happening from there.
They put people
He's about to be
ahead
introduced.
Of and they put results ahead of rhetoric. And I am so proud to be standing next to a man like Ron DeSantis as the next governor of the state of Florida. He is a man of principle. He is a man of conviction. And he is going to make one heck of a governor. Thank you all so much for your support. It means so much. And I also want to give thanks to God because he is here in this room tonight. So please join me in welcoming our next governor and the First Lady, Ron and Casey DeSantis.
But let's listen to Ron DeSantis.
Florida, for your support. About 15 minutes ago, I spoke with Andrew Gillum, and he very graciously conceded the election. He was a very formidable opponent, and I wish him well in his future endeavors. Other than serving our nation in uniform, the opportunity to serve as the 46th governor of the great state of Florida is the greatest professional honor of my life. Thank you, the people of Florida, for your faith, your support, and your trust you have placed in me. Not bad for a kid who started out making $6 an hour. Now, throughout the campaign, I knew the only thing I could fully control was how hard I worked. And while I was confident in achieving a victory, I was at peace knowing that I worked as hard as I possibly could, and I left everything out on the field. When he spoke to the Ohio Regiment towards the end of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln told the soldiers assembled before him that the free government for which they were fighting provided everyone with an open field and fair chance for their industry, enterprise, and intelligence. Lincoln was born on the frontier in obscure circumstances, yet he rose to the highest office in the land. He was living proof that these ideals those soldiers were fighting for were worth the sacrifice. And I think my election as governor in the nation's third largest state is further proof that, regardless of where you start out in life, if you work hard, if you do it for the right reasons, you can succeed in the United States of America. Now, when Casey and I launched this effort in January, the pundit class gave us no chance. And even today, the political and media class seem eager to write our obituary. But the great thing about our country is that every 2 years, the people have that one day in November where the elites don't call the shots, where they don't get to craft the narrative, and where they don't get to set the agenda. On Election Day, it's the voice of the people that rules. Now, as governor, I'll make sure Florida remains a low-tax state. We'll hold people in government accountable. We'll protect taxpayer dollars, and we'll ensure that Floridians from all walks of life have that open field and fair chance to realize their dreams. And for those of you in high-tax states who may be contemplating investing in Florida, please know that we will remain open for business. And we will save you an awful lot in taxes if you bring your investment to Florida. There's a lot of people I have to thank, and unfortunately, I just can't thank everyone. But I can tell you this, my most significant and valued supporter, in spite of what the media may say, is standing right next to me, my wife, Casey. You know, we met, by chance at a driving range and years ago, and she has been my best friend. She's the best wife anybody could ever have. And I very much hope, and I think I will be a great governor, but I can guarantee you on day one of all 50 states, Florida will have the best first lady in the country, and my wife, Casey. I'd also like to thank my parents for all they did for me, especially my mother, who's a retired nurse, and we have 2 kids under 2. And so when you're running for governor in this massive state, always going in and out, it really has helped that she has been there helping us get through this really difficult process. So I love her very much, and I want to thank her. I also want to thank all the great volunteers that we had throughout the state of Florida. And the bottom line is I'm a vessel. I'm putting out the ideas and I'm putting out the leadership, but you guys are the ones that really made this victory happen. You knocked on doors, you made calls, you waved signs, and you sent me your prayers all across the state of Florida. And truth be told, one of the reasons why I worked so hard during the campaign is I saw you working so hard, and I did not want to let you down. I also want to thank our campaign staff who worked very, very hard throughout this process, starting with our campaign chairman, Susie Wiles, who's really the best in the business. And she worked, and everyone worked so hard and were instrumental. And I want to thank our wonderful Lieutenant Governor-elect, Jeanette Nunez. Now, when we started the campaign and Jeanette got on the ticket, she was kind of our secret weapon, but I think now her force and presence has been witnessed by the entire state, and people know that we are getting a special woman to be our lieutenant governor. And she will be, when she takes office, the highest ranking Hispanic female in the history of the state of Florida. I'd also like to thank Governor Rick Scott for his leadership as governor. We have an awful lot of opportunities in Florida, particularly building a stronger economy, and that is in large part due to the hard work of Rick Scott for 8 years, focusing on bringing Florida's economy back. It's never been better. We haven't reached our potential. That's what I'm going to work on doing. But Governor Scott has done a great job for the people of the state of Florida. And finally, I'd like to thank our president for standing by me when it wasn't necessarily the smart thing to do. Mr. President, I look forward to working with you to advance Florida's priorities. I think you're going to get tired of me calling you, asking you for things for Florida, but I look forward to that. I think we'll have a great partnership. I'm excited for the opportunities for Florida, and I'm excited to be able to serve as the leader of the state. When I was in Iraq, it didn't matter where our fellow service members came from. It didn't matter what they looked like. We all wore the same American flag patch on our uniform. We never thought about which of the folks back home we were fighting for. Were we fighting for Republicans? Were we fighting for just Democrats? No, we stood for all Americans. Now, political campaigns are rough business and are often about highlighting our differences. And unfortunately, in this day and age, they too often spiral into outright demagoguery. But governing is different. Governing is about getting things done on behalf of the people of Florida. Keeping the economy going, improving our water quality and environment, promoting public safety, and expanding educational opportunities. We need to build a Florida that's cleaner, safer, stronger, and that'll be my guiding light as governor. So you can count on me.
You have been listening to Ron DeSantis, governor-elect of the state of Florida, flanked there by his wife and his lieutenant governor-elect, Jeanette Nunez, on his other side. And he is really offering up a much more sort of conciliatory tone than the election process leading up to this.
He said demagoguery, I think is a good way to put it. And I think that he also said something interesting in that speech, which is Election day is still important. We have so much early voting going on, and when the returns were coming in, I think the Gillum campaign was looking at that going, we're doing remarkably well.
Feeling like they had a lot of momentum.
And they did have a lot of momentum. But when you come down to you start counting the election, the voters who came out today made the difference in this. So Ron DeSantis will be the next governor of Florida. This is a Yale graduate, a Harvard Law School grad,
and a veteran.
I mean, prosecutor. You know, and he's all about jobs and the economy. So we shall see. Ron DeSantis, your next governor. Still to come, did a plan to fund much-needed improvements at Bay Area schools pass the test?
Coming up next, we'll take a look at a tax hike aimed at helping aging buildings make the grade. Did it pass or fail with Hillsborough County voters?
Plus, a sign outside a Bay Area polling place did not sit well with a lot of voters. Why the pastor who put it up is defending that message tonight.
And here's a live look at our tower camera in downtown Tampa. Always a beautiful view. Storm teammate Steve Jervy will have your full forecast coming up.
And now some more results from this election, and we'll have more of those when we come back. Turning now to Tallahassee, this is where Andrew Gillum supporters have been watching the returns tonight, and of course they were disappointed in the end. Andrew Gillum coming out to concede to Ron DeSantis tonight.
News Channel 8's Corey Davis joins us now live, and I believe they are beginning sort of the deconstruction process of that celebration, and the night didn't end the way they had hoped.
Yeah, the crowd is mostly gone now, and Mayor Andrew Gillum broke the news to them that they didn't bring it home as they were chanting for the past few weeks. He paused for several seconds, taking it in, telling his supporters that he regrets not winning the race. If he actually won, he would have made history becoming the first black governor of the state of Florida. That did not happen tonight. Take a listen to some of his concession speech.
We let our voices be heard. We didn't shrink from the challenges. We didn't shrink from power. We spoke truth to power. And just because we didn't always come out victorious, we didn't retreat. We stood up. We stood strong.
And Gillum says that he isn't going anywhere. He's going to continue to fight for key issues important to him: higher teacher pay, increasing the minimum wage, and also fighting for health care changes that he believes will make a difference here in the state. For now, we're live here in Tallahassee. Corey Davis, News Channel 8.
This is a candidate who I think shocked the state and may have shocked the country. He came from out of nowhere to win the primary, stunned his own party. I think I heard the Democrats saying at one point, yeah, we were ready for Andrew Gillum to be a star. I mean, he spoke before the National Democratic Convention. He was there, but I'm not sure the Democratic Party was ready for him to be the star. There's a difference. We want you to be the star, but are you the star? But this guy proved that he was a difference maker, and he came that close to being the next governor of Florida.
And
Democrat.
one of his exact quotes, he said, "I will be on the front lines moving forward."
Yeah.
So this is a young man that I think we will see a lot more of in the future.
Bright future ahead, 40 years old. Ron DeSantis, 40 years. Both these guys very young. All right, one of two referendums on the ballot for Hillsborough County voters tonight, whether to add a half-penny sales tax to help make improvements to county schools.
Let's take a look at the results right now. 56% of voters in Hillsborough County passing this referendum 3. Earlier today, we caught up with Superintendent of Schools Jeff Akins, who spoke about why he believes this tax is so necessary.
We've identified 1,785 specific projects already. It's been out on our website. It's basically, if you look at our deferred maintenance for the last 5 to 10 years that have built up over that period of time, we're going to tackle all those projects.
Polk County also voting on funding for school improvements tonight. They voted to extend a half-penny sales tax for another 15 years. It's projected to raise $40 million annually to help fund school maintenance.
A lot of benevolence on the part of voters today. The other referendum on the ballot for Hillsborough voters, whether to add a 1-cent sales tax to fund transportation and road improvements. And 57% of the voters said, yeah, we'll give you that extra money, and hopefully you'll do some good with it and make the transportation situation in our area a lot better.
There have been major statewide races, but there are also some important local races. Hillsborough County deciding who will be their sheriff today.
Chad Chronister has served as sheriff since David G. retired last year, and he had been running against Gary Pruitt to keep that job. You can see Chronister with 55% of the vote. Again, he's the Republican in this race. Gary Pruitt, 45%. Chad Chronister is your sheriff, continues on as sheriff of Hillsborough County.
So again, it's a tremendous honor to be here. Matter of fact, let me be self-serving for one quick second. There's a lot of you that live here in Tampa, and they just called the sheriff's race, and yes, I am your next sheriff. Thank you.
He was there at Ashley Moody's event, so that was a celebratory night for multiple candidates at that event. Meantime, a sign outside of a Newport Richey polling location caused a lot of controversy on this election day.
Grace of God Church pastor Al Carlisle posted a sign that read, "Don't vote for Democrats on Tuesday and sing Oh How I Love Jesus on Sunday."
I didn't write the Bible.
But you wrote the sign.
I wrote the sign based upon the Bible.
The Bible says don't vote for Democrats?
No. The Bible says be consistent in your life.
Pasco's supervisor of elections said the sign was legal because it was more than 100 feet from the polling area, but he also told the pastor there that he will remove the church as a polling place in the next election.
Election results will continue to scroll on the bottom of your screen. If you missed any of them, we will be bringing you live updates throughout the night on WFLA.com, as well as on our News Channel 8 app.
Newly adopted guidelines for LGBT students in Sarasota schools created hours of debate at tonight's school board meeting. But as News Channel 8's Victoria Price shows us, the discussion there made no dent in the directive.
Hey, good evening. The superintendent insists these are not new guidelines, just newly put in writing. Still, 3 hours worth of parents signed up to speak tonight, all with very strong, very divided opinions.
I am a parent, and oh yes, I'm also a transgender woman.
Tuesday's Sarasota School Board meeting packed with parents and passionate debate.
This is not about LGBT rights. It's about PARENTAL rights.
Last month, the district adopted gender-diverse student guidelines that direct schools on how to address issues, including bathrooms, locker rooms, and overnight field trips for LGBT students. The guidance also allows kids to choose the name and gender they identify with at school. No parent input needed.
We have to err on the side of caution of making sure that they are safe, they are protected, they are valued, and they are appreciated.
Some parents argued the lack of notification infringed on parental rights. Others disagreed with allowing transgender kids to choose which bathrooms and locker rooms they were comfortable with.
I'm sorry, I don't want a young man in there with my daughter.
But others thank the district for protecting LGBT kids, including protection from outing them to parents who may not accept their child's situation.
Our transgender kids just want equity in the schools.
Regardless of attacks or praise from parents, the superintendent's message remained to his students.
You do not need permission from your parent or anyone else to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersect, or asexual.
Tonight's heated discussion concluded with a failed motion by the board's chair to bring back the parental notification issue for board consideration. In Sarasota, Victoria Price, News Channel 8.
Now, Max Defender 8, the radar built for Tampa Bay weather, and your Storm Team 8 forecast with Chief Meteorologist Steve Jervey.
A nice weather day to go to the polls. Didn't have any problems with rain, and tonight it remains quiet on Max Defender 8. A few showers, though, as we saw from Corey's early reports. Even a few lightning strikes up there as a weak front sagging into the area. This particular front's not going to sweep through the area, but cooler air is definitely in our long-range forecast. At the Plantation Crystal River now 69 degrees with a southeast wind, fairly light, fairly pleasant to start the day, but of course humidity is a little bit higher than you'd like. Last 5 days, temperatures have been kind of cool. These are low temperatures observed. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you can see where they've climbed to the low 70s. That's just an indication of the return of humidity, and you definitely can feel that. Rob Dix from Winter Haven, a beautiful sunset. Sky was just colorful tonight. Gordon Silver, sunset at Lakewood Ranch, and this one from Danny Schiffer in the park, and you can see, of course, the color to the sky. Some great photographs. Shared them on Facebook as well. East to northeast winds 5 knots. Boaters seas 2 feet. A light chop bay waters. Again, our forecast planner will call for 72 degrees to start the day. That's a reflection of the higher humidity. There's our sunrise. 85 degrees at noon, 87 degrees at 3 p.m. for tomorrow. Another warm day. Mid and upper 80s. We saw some upper 80s today. 75 degrees right now, Bartow. 68 Zephyrs Hills. 69 degrees Weeki Wachee. 73 St. Pete. 71 in Sebring. Not too much in the way of clouds here across the northern part of the state and to the north. High pressure dominates north of the front. A little cooler, drier air there. For Wednesday morning, fairly pleasant start to the day here with temps in the low 70s, and in the afternoon, small rain chance. We keep about a 10% chance of a shower, but not that widespread. Just want to make mention of it in case you do see a shower. Getting into Thursday, that front tries to sag in a little farther south, but it's not until Saturday we see a front try to make a bit of a wind shift here and provide some slightly cooler, drier air. But it's really next week that we start to bring in the cooler and drier air. Long-range forecast. There's the front I referenced this weekend. First front will bring in a small cool down and some rain chances here locally. And then next week, a stronger front will arrive with rain and much cooler air pushing into the area, that area of low pressure. And this is actually some pretty chilly air according to the computer models. They are very chilly, but right now we'll go very conservative and talk about highs in the 60s and see how this develops. Sometimes they can change their mind over time, and it's a long way out, 8 days. But you can look forward to next Tuesday and Wednesday, about a week out, potentially some cooler air. Heartwalk looks good this weekend weather-wise. A milder start to the day there. And the rain chances remain relatively low, guys, but not bad weather overall. Afternoons are a little bit warm, and perhaps the humidity is a little bit higher, but this evening was really lovely.
You know what I'm going to miss about the humidity?
What?
The same thing I miss about the robocalls and the election texts.
None of it.
And the
Good riddance.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we need a constitutional amendment since everybody's passing everything now that we don't have postcards this big in the mailbox anymore. Yeah. Can we look at these to like an index card?
They were getting bigger by the day.
All right. Still to come, more election coverage for you tonight.
We are taking a look at the national picture. Will Republicans maintain control of Congress?
And here are some more local election results. News Channel 8 is your local election headquarters, and it looks like Democrats will regain a majority in the House. Meantime, Republicans will retain their control of the Senate. In Texas, incumbent Republican Ted Cruz beat Congressman Beto O'Rourke. Cruz ran for president, as you know, back in 2016 and lost, but returned to run a Texas-focused campaign, airing ads promoting his work during Hurricane Harvey.
In Georgia, voting hours were extended at many polling locations after voters complained about long lines there. At last check, Republican Brian Kemp led Democrat Stacey Abrams by close to 10%, with 62% of precincts reporting in the race for governor. A new federal lawsuit is calling to prevent Kemp from overseeing the state's election because he currently serves as Georgia's Secretary of State. Critics say it's a conflict of interest for Kemp. Definitely an interesting race to watch. We'll be right back with much more election night coverage.
Florida had been one of only 4 states to take away the voting rights of felons.
But tonight, voters decided to end that ban for most felons. News Channel 8's Evan Donovan joins us now live from the WFLA Now desk, just one of the many amendments that passed tonight.
Yeah, it certainly is quite surprising, Jen and Keith. Amendment 4 restoring voting rights to Floridians with felony convictions after they complete their sentence. That includes probation and any parole, as well as paying restitution. The amendment does not apply to those convicted of murder or sexual offenses. You can see right here with almost all of the precincts reporting 64% to 36%. Of course, it only needed to hit the 60% threshold to pass. It was among every other except for one amendment that passed tonight. And I spoke to a clemency attorney. He is an expert in restoring felons' voting rights. And I asked him whether he was surprised about tonight's results.
I suppose I'm not really surprised. There was a lot of money behind the campaign. They ran a good campaign, had great marketing, great social media presence. And, you know, every major newspaper in the state of Florida supported Amendment 4. So, it passed by just a few percentage points, but that's all it takes.
There was a question before when you're registering to vote about whether you're a felon. Now, is the question going to change?
I think it's going to have to change. I think the registration form will have to change. Now the question will change from, are you a convicted felon, which is all that was required to disenfranchise you up until tonight. Now the question would have to be, have you been convicted of murder or any sexual felony? If you say yes to that question, well, then you're still disenfranchised. If you say no to that question, it doesn't matter if you've been convicted of 10 other felonies that aren't those 2 things. It doesn't matter. You'll be allowed to register to vote.
It's a significant impact to this amendment passing because out of the nation's 6 million felons who don't have the right to vote, a quarter of them, 1.4 to 1.5 million, live right here in Florida. We have an election here in Tampa to elect the next mayor at the beginning of next year. So we could see the impact of this amendment very quickly. I'm Evan Donovan at the WFLA Now desk. We've got more election coverage coming right your way. We'll be right back.
The U.S. Senate race still too close to call, but we understand Governor Rick Scott is getting ready to speak. So we want to listen into that.
I'm going to go to Governor Rick Scott. Again, this race too close to call, but apparently he's speaking. There's his wife, Ann, by his side. And let's listen in to Governor Scott.
Thank you. It's hard, I mean, if you just stop to think about from what we started to deliberate 8 years and 7 months ago, it's just hard to believe we're here tonight. Now that this campaign is behind us, that's where we're going to leave it. At least the campaigns I've been involved in are divisive and they're tough. And they're really actually way too nasty. But you know what? We've done this for over 200 years, and after these campaigns, we come together. And that's what we're going to do. Americans come together. So, thank you to all of you, because everybody in this room has been a part of it. But the first person I want to thank is my lovely wife, Ann. You know, we've been together since we were 19 years old, and I put her through a lot of things. So the last 8 years has been a lot. As you all know, when Hurricane Michael hit, But a young lady did not have an interest in giving campaign speeches. When I decided to run in 2010 because she was afraid of public speakings, I asked her if she would go on the campaign trail, and she did. I want to thank our daughters, Allison and Jordan, and their families, and you know, I love my family. I love my family with all my heart, and I love every family in this state. And my goal is to make this a better place for every family in this state, every family. There are a couple people looking down from heaven I want to recognize. I had the most wonderful mom. When I was born, my mom was a single mom, and she ultimately raised 5 kids in a very tough environment with no money. She never would believe that I'd be a governor or a U.S. senator. I guess she believed it, didn't know. The second person you saw in the video a second ago is Jerry Bustamante. For everybody in our office and everybody on this campaign team, she was our best friend. And she unfortunately died the day before the campaign started. And pienso en Jerry todos los días y espero que esté orgulloso de mi español. Su familia está aquí esta noche y quiero agradecerles por haber creado una mujer tan maravillosa y me alegro haber tenido la oportunidad de conocerla. Nunca la olvidaremos.
Puerto Rico, for Trump!
We all loved Jerry, and we all love my mom. The next person I want to thank is Jackie Schutz. She has been by my side since my first year in office, and she built a great campaign team, and they worked day and night. So Jackie and the entire team, thank you. I also want to thank Brad Piepenbrink. Brad's my chief of staff. Not sure where he is. But Brad's my chief of staff, and he has done a great job. I want to thank my entire team in the governor's office, all of our agency heads. They have done a great job making this a place where everybody wants to live. There are a lot of people that helped in this race, a lot of people. I want to thank President Trump for all of his hard work. I want to thank Vice President Pence. I want to thank former President George W. Bush who helped us. I want to thank former Governor Jeb Bush. There's a lot of people that came down to make sure we got the vote out. I want to thank Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator Cory Gardner. I want to thank everybody from Puerto Rico that came to help. I want to thank Congresswoman Jennifer Gonzalez-Colon. I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor, Luis Rivera Marin. I want to thank Senator Marco Rubio for all his help. And my Lieutenant Governor, Carlos López Quintero. Lo más importante en esta campaña ha sido el trabajo de todos nuestros donantes, voluntarios y colaboradores. Lo que tenemos hoy es el testimonio de su compromiso para hacer de nuestro estado el mejor lugar para todas las familias en nuestro estado. There's going to be, there's going to be a lot of pundits that are going to analyze this race. There's a lot of people going to pour over all those inaccurate polls. But I have no interest in looking backwards. I'm going to look to the future, and we have a bright future in front of us. Based on a lot of people's hard work, our national economy is growing, our wages are up, and every country would love to have the economy of the USA. We are the envy of the world, and Florida is the envy of the United States. When you see all the success, it's shocking to see that people actually suggesting we embrace socialism. Socialism will not happen in our nation, and it's not going to happen under my watch. I didn't go to Tallahassee 8 years ago to be everybody's friend. I'm not going to D.C. to win a popularity contest. I'm going to D.C. to get something done. I put out a 10-point plan that I believe in. I know the press corps in Florida decided not to read it or spend any time on it. We all know that change is never popular, especially when you're talking about how you're going to change government. But I brought a business perspective to Tallahassee 8 years ago, and I tried to use every effort I could to change the direction of the state of Florida, and together we did. Together we reinvented state government in Florida, and we're going to do the same thing in D.C. The federal government is frustrating, it's outdated, it's wasteful, and it's inefficient. All of us in state government have dealt with the federal government over the last 8 years, and we could tell you story after story after story. Now, I'm just one individual, but there's a lot of other individuals in D.C. that want to do the same thing. And I'm going to work with them, and we will change, like we did in Florida, the direction of Washington, D.C.
All right, Governor Rick Scott talking. We have to take a commercial break. We'll be back with more right after this. Before we say goodnight, if you are just joining us, we want to bring you up to date on the current election results. First, the governor's race, as we've pointed out, it is Ron DeSantis. He will be your next governor for the state of Florida, defeating Andrew Gillum.
Now to Florida's Senate race. The number is still very close at this point, but Rick Scott coming out and declaring victory. We still haven't had anyone officially call the race yet, and Bill Nelson has not conceded, but you see the results there. More to come on this in the days ahead.
And NBC News continues coverage after our coverage ends here. Our next newscast is at 4:30 tomorrow morning with all of the reaction to tonight's election.
Have a great night.
Good night.